pleasure and an honor to be here today to share my thoughts with you. I don't know how many of you remember your nursery rhymes. If you remember this one, please join me. It's called the London Bridge. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. Echo Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. Echo Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. Niger Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. Niger Bridge is falling down, Niger lady. We're bringing it home. But can you imagine Lagos without a third mainland bridge? Can you imagine Lagos without a co-bridge? Or can you imagine the southern part of Nigeria without the Niger Bridge? Can you imagine Lokoja without the Confluence Bridge? I'm sure you can see the bridges on the screen. Eko Bridge was the first bridge that was ever built in Nigeria. But imagine still our lives without these physical bridges. Can you imagine, even worse, life without mental bridges, life without social bridges, life without spiritual bridges, life without emotional bridges? Can you imagine how gloomy and really how unfortunate our lives would be? And what effect this would have on the individual out there, on the family, on business relationships, on friendships, on the community, and on the vulnerable group. Now, whether we're talking about physical bridges, mental bridges, emotional bridges, or spiritual bridges, there are three very important ingredients that we need and require to be able to build effective bridges. They're essential to the building of bridges in everybody's lives. This is the bridge and the tool of building bridges called the 3 T's. The first T is the T of time. How much time do we create to add value into the lives of our fellow human beings? The second T is the T of talent. Do you have a skill that you can share and pass on to the less privileged, to the youth? And the third T of these 3 T's is the treasure. Do you have treasure or material things you can pass on? As I ask this question, I ask myself, a large population of the Nigerian society are youth. What type of role models are we creating for these young people? We're all guilty. We all like fancy cars. We like, men love G-Wagon, that I know. Must you have 20 or 10 because you can afford it? What about just 1 or 2 and pass the rest on? Must you have 20 Ferragamo bags and Chanel shoes just because you can afford it? Just the other day, I was at an event, and I saw 2 young ladies just trotting along, pretty girls between 20 and 30, or 25, really. One is carrying the most expensive bag, I'd think 3 or 4 times before I'd buy it. And so was the other girl. And I was thinking, how will a young man approach such a young lady? And then it reminded me of the story my father used to tell us, girls. He said, come on, girls. I know you're enjoying your life as my children, but you must simplify your tastes. Keep your taste simple, because you do not know this type of man you're going to fall in love with. If you fall in love with a man who cannot afford you, there'll be problems. So young people today, yes, we're not good role models for you. We are not doing what we should do. Some of us mothers, when did we last cook? Maybe once a week if you can, or even once a month. I remember when I was a kid, my dad would set out every Saturday, he'll cook for everyone and set the table. I never forgot that. So we might be very busy as women, have high-powered jobs, tell me about it. But you must make time out to be with your family, especially the young ones. You need to mentor them, you need to coach them. You need to add value in their lives, not just through material things, but through things you tell them, there's things you share with them, the values. You need to create very, very strong character bridges in our children today. It's not just the social bridges, or the mental bridges, or the psychological bridges, or the spiritual bridges, or even the physical bridges. We need to build bridges of character in our children, because they are the future for us. Talking about role model, I do live in a block of flats, and about 2 years ago, we had a new tenant who moved in. This man had over 30 cars. Every weekend, we'll look on a balcony, we're watching him. What is he doing? They've got a house where they put all these cars, and they bring 10 every weekend. He's warming the Ferrari, vroom, vroom, vroom. Then next weekend, he's warming this one. That's all he does on a weekend. Then another weekend, another group of cars are brought. And then, and I was looking at this guy, and I said, what if he dies tomorrow? Of what value is all that? It's all vanities. Vanity, vanity, vanity. And then I say to myself, we need to build spiritual bridges, mental bridges, emotional bridges, and every bridge that we need to do to be able to look after the younger ones after us. I've had a lot of experience. In the past 8 years, I began to realize I got to the top. I was so happy with the first video we watched. I've been a woman, always lonely at the top. And I formed a habit of always giving a ladder to a woman. I was the topmost lady in Lafarge Cement. And until I got that job, a woman had never been in the executive of that company. And they'd been in Nigeria for 45 years plus. So I broke that chain. Of course, they gave me a free hand to recruit. Of course, trust me, every recruitment was a woman who was good and who could do the job. That didn't go unperturbed because the petitions were written to Paris. And Paris came and said, but this woman is doing amazing things. And the women she brought in, they're all professionals. So what problems do you have with her? So I became a local champion, having come all the way from banking. Now we talk about giving, our treasure. I spent, out of my 30 years plus in the corporate world, I've spent 21 years in banking, and I rose to the very top before I went into government. Now, the bankers always complain, we don't like to give money to SMEs and to entrepreneurs. Why? Oh, they never pay us back. They don't pay you back because you're not willing to take that risk in building an Aliko Dangote. Somebody stood by him when he had nothing. And so we need to start as bankers, as professionals, to mentor and coach those young people. If you give a loan, how about creating a unit in the bank that will coach and mentor these young people, teach them how to run their businesses in a profitable manner, in a shrewd manner, so that they can pay your loan back. Take an interest in that loan that you give them. Don't look away. Assign a staff to about 10 SMEs. It's their job to make sure that that enterprise is a success. Now you talk about giving. When you talk about giving, we're not talking about giving your excess. You fill up to the top and then you give your excess. No. We're not talking about giving at your convenience. No, not at all. We're talking about sacrificial giving. Give until it hurts. Inconvenience yourself to give. In the world today, so many people do not have. What is the future of the over 1 billion people in the world today that are living below the poverty line? What is the future of over 10 million children in Nigeria today that are not in schools? What is the future of all these people? Even worse, what is the future of those in the conflict zones? Is it the northeastern Nigeria, which we had a beautiful presentation this afternoon? Or is it the Africans that are dying in the Mediterranean? Or is it the conflict in Syria? Or the Rohingya refugees? Either way you look at it, this is a call, a wake-up call to all Africans, to everyone, that we need to build more mental bridges, more social bridges, more psychological bridges, and spiritual bridges. Now, the youth in Nigeria. Over 8 years ago, I found out that the money that I earned really had become of no value to me. Because as a banker, you always talk about billions. Billions is like 10 kobo and 5 naira because you're always dealing in it. So you have no respect for money. So I began to give all I earned at the time from 8 years ago till today. Yes, I suffered when I was in government because I had no salary, more or less. But I kept up doing it, and it hurt, and it was painful, but it felt so good. If you have money, and you have means, and it has no purpose, it is meaningless. Totally meaningless. Talking about sacrificial giving, I remember at an occasion, it was all for charity. And on my left, I saw men who had Rolls Royces. To my right, I saw men who had private jets. I don't have any of those things. And when they began to call for a project that really needed help, I didn't see any hands up. And I was like, what about all these big shots and the big cars they came with? At the end of the day, I had to put up my hand. And I took that particular commitment. Of course, I got home. After about a few hours, the phone rings. Mama, 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 I hope you're preparing. We're coming. I totally forgot my children were coming on vacation. And I gave everything I had because nobody else volunteered. And as I was just saying, oh dear, what am I going to do? I got a phone call from the agent of a property that was abandoned for over 2 years. He said, Madam, forget it. Nobody is going to rent that property for you. Of course, the person did not just want to rent it. He was ready to pay cash that day. And pay what? Pay 3 times of what I gave out. And at that time, I wasn't working. That was why I felt the impact. I took time off to be a mama, be at home for my children, be there, coach them, mentor them. So when you talk about giving, you have to feel some pain for it to be real. Because there are people who are so unfortunate that even a drop of whatever you give is a big deal to them. Another incident, there's so many of them. I took time off when I was director in Coca-Cola, and I said, look, I've never taken time off. I would like a break of 6 months. I had this tenant, never paying my rent. Now they were youth, so I didn't let them pay annually. I said, pay your rent every month, just to make it easier on them because they're all young people. I just needed spending money reading. So I went for morning mass, and we got there was an appeal for a very sad state. Very few people stood up. I only had money for the weekend, and again, not much was with me that weekend. So I said, well, this looks really sad. Only 2 or 3 people came out of about 50 of us sitting there. So I went and I was saying in my heart, I just pray that the children don't say, Mama, we want this, anything I have to buy that I can't cook at home, So I went in and I put everything I had. Then I walked home. I got home. I started making some crepe, for the children. And the Megadi came. Madam, that boy is here again, oh. I said, yeah, really, what does he want? Please, I don't want to see him. The last time we talked about rent, he started crying. So what's the point of, seeing him? But the Megadi kept insisting. So I said, okay, maybe I'll see him. So I said, coming. You won't believe it. This young man brought his 6 months arrears right there for me. And that made my weekend. So giving is something that it's very special. It's not the person receiving that's getting a gift. It is you giving. You are the one getting that gift, Now, why do we have, why and what is the purpose of bridges in our lives? Usually, bridges are there to take us in our journey in life from point A to B, which is a forward movement. But sometimes we do the wrong things, maybe. Maybe we don't build bridges in other people's lives. And then we find ourselves having to move back to point A. But that is the essence of bridges in our lives, to move forward. Now, why? Why do people want to move? Because of the prevalent inequality that humanity suffers. Sometimes bridges are there for you as an escape. Some want to escape from poverty, from poverty to prosperity. Some want to escape from illiteracy to literacy. And others may just want to escape from dying at age 5 to living up to 120 years old. But I ask you, what are the types of bridges that we have? Do you know that sometimes that bridge doesn't have to be as long as Third Mainland Bridge? It doesn't even have to be as long as London Bridge. Sometimes the bridge we need to build in other people's lives, just a little tile, a bridge the size of a little tile, your bathroom tile, for somebody to just stand on. Other times, it could be a bed to sleep on. Most times, it could be just a meal to stay alive. Other times, it could be a desk and a chair. And other times, it could be affordable credit to run a business, an honest business. And oftentimes, as we are all politicians in this country, it could just be a ballot paper to have a right to vote in a government of corporate governance. A choice. Now, if we cannot build bridges in people's lives, then we might as well forget about the big ideas, the conferences and the retreats, all the fancy things we do in the name of for the poor. It has to be genuine. It has to come from your heart. Helen Keller did say, one candle does not lose anything by lighting another candle. And I say to you, it's not enough to have a light in your own life. You've got to light another person's life. Light another candle in somebody's life today. And let us build a bridge, build a spiritual bridge. Most importantly, for our youth, let us build character, strong character bridges. The youth in our society, they are real. For 8 years, I've been giving all I earn to them. Then I scrape and scratch. People will say, oh, I'm broke. You're broke? Yes. They have no idea what I'm doing with my money. I'd rather beg and appeal for money than say no to a young person that needs that money. The needs of the young people in Nigeria are real. The African child is ready to be taken seriously today. So let us build a bridge for that orphan. Let us build a bridge today for that widow. Let us build a bridge today for that internally displaced person. Let us build bridges of character by being good role models for our children. They watch what we do. We must show good example. And that is the end of my... Thank you very much.